But good afternoon. It's wonderful to see all of you. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Faith+Works Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Orange, which carries on the work of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Essex County and is the home of the Hub. I'm going to start with some opening words. These are the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's about walking. Take my hand. We will walk. We will only walk. We will enjoy our walk without thinking of arriving anywhere. Walk peacefully. Walk happily. Our walk is a peace walk. Our walk is a happiness walk. Then we learn there is no peace walk. There is no happiness walk. That happiness is the walk. We walk for ourselves. We walk for everyone, always hand in hand. Walk and touch, peace every moment. Each step brings a fresh breeze. Each step makes a flower bloom under our feet. Kiss the earth with your feet. Print on earth your love and happiness. Earth will be safe when we feel in us enough safety. Frank, would you like to light the chalice now? Sure.
The chalice lighting words are from Charles Howe. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our ways. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to illuminate our minds. And that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light and to the rich possibilities that it brings us.
Great. Fun little popcorn up and down process here. So, welcome to Stuart and Deanna to our little congregation. Darcy mentioned that we're the home of the Hub. All of us here, including our guests, I think after last Saturday's event, are familiar with the story of the founding of the Hub and what we've evolved into and the work that we're carrying on in 2025 as a community campus. But we didn't talk so much about the congregation last week, so I'll just briefly say that as a way of sort of setting the scene a little bit, once the Hub was founded, this question about what the congregation was anymore sort of was a question we were grappling with. And Mindy pointed out that in the book of John, I always get this wrong. James, book of James. There's a line about faith without works being dead. And the congregation, that was sort of what the congregation had moved through, that there was faith, but there was no works, and so it was dying. And so we made the Hub, and now there was works, and the buildings are very lively now, and there's a lot of life in this place, and there's a lot of people helping to take care of it. But still, the question of what now the congregation as an organization and as an entity would do came up, and so we started a monthly lay-led series called Faith+Works, where we invite friends, guests, visitors to come and talk about their faith and their works, whatever those two pillars in their life mean to them, however they understand that and the relationship between them. And then in the last couple of years, we've a dear friend and comrade of ours, Dr. Edgar Rivera Colon, who's from Jersey City originally, but 5 years ago moved to Los Angeles and is working as a social movement chaplain in LA. And we still very connected to our group. He's on the University of Orange board, and we asked him if he would be our minister. So we have a minister and we're lay-led, which we like. And Edgar really helped us understand this space as a space, even with our very, very tiny congregation hey Priscilla, what's the word? Collective spiritual discernment about this work that we're undertaking. And that we invite all these wonderful guests to come and help us understand Faith+Works and what that means for all of us in 2025. Anyway, with all of that said, I'm going to ask Darcy to introduce today's guest, Stuart. And Darcy's going to read a brief bio, and then we're going to get started.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
So, welcome. We are looking forward to hearing about the journey and life of Stuart. What's your last name? How do you pronounce it?
Stuart is good.
Stuart. Thank you, Stuart. You sent a lovely brief biography in the first person, which I think I will just read because it's very nicely written from the heart. I was born and raised in Brazil as a grandson of ministers. Throughout my life, the influence of faith people has kept me connected with the disenfranchised. From my family's Presbyterian roots to my high school nun teachers and eclectic university experiences, I was constantly reminded of our responsibility to our neighbor. As I migrated north, I became undocumented. My faith search took me to the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. My son was raised within the UU principles, and as our daughter became about 5 years old, she introduced me to Quakerism. And this has become the main path of my spiritual journey. So we're really looking forward to hearing about your spiritual journey. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Can I sit down or stay?
We can get you a chair.
There's a bench here.
Do you want that as a stool, okay?
I guess being high is kind of fun. It's a personal issue. Thank you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting us. It's interesting that you start with a walk, because we have been walking for 25 years as an organization, and some on the call, some on the Zoom that I saw, and some in the room here have walked with us, a few of them. This year we walked as Quakers and as Wind of Spirit, we walked to Washington, from Flushing, Queens to Washington. That was about 300 miles. Then we walked with some here from Plainfield, which is one of our offices, to what's the name of the city? Forget. Scutari's office in Linden. No, in Clark. Sorry, in Clark. I walked to Clark, and then recently, the last walk that two of you beautiful people were with us, we walked from Madison to Newark, celebrating. It was 25 kilometers for 25 years. So walk has been part of what we've been doing for a long time. Before we got here, I walked in Brazil, Diana walked in Colombia, but in this country, we've been walking for a long time. So I wrote a few things down because otherwise I would get lost. But I've been in this space before several times, and it was a very good energy. And of course, I was here a little over a week ago when this was radiant and spelling all kinds of good vibes throughout the room, and that was a reflection, of course, of the work that you've been doing. So we congratulate you again for the good work that you've been putting on that. So when I was asked to talk about faith and work, I thought that I could try to go over expand a little bit on the bio and try to see if I could connect the times that I thought when I was doing the work and how that coincided or crossed with the faith. So I was born in São Paulo, as you know, Brazil. Big city, I was just born there. But then I lived at the beginning of my life in Mato Grosso, the state, Dourados, the town. It's a little dot in the not so small Brazil. And my grandparents had, at that point, moved to that part of the country to do work over there. And my father, a civil engineer, was building schools, hospitals, and church upon the ask of his father. So my grandfather said, why don't you come here and help me out? And that's what he was doing. And so in that, when I look back, the building of churches that my father was doing, and was always related with building community. And my grandfather was his generation left this country. How are you? That's another walker. We started with a poem about a walk. So I talked about some beautiful people that walk with us. You hadn't made it yet, but this is one of them.
He had to walk here.
It took him a while. He had to walk here.
So my grandfather's generation went around the world as missionaries. And some became very notable, especially when they went to China. It's known around different circles, but...
And are you related to Prabhupada?
Yes. Yeah, that's the one. Right, so Prabhupada is my grandfather's cousin.
Wow.
That's the S is for Sydenstricker, O-S Buck. So that's the one that everybody knows about.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, not all. I mean, if you want anything you want to chime in, that would be great. It is clear to me that before I came around the world, the idea of work and faith was integrated in generations before me. So I was born within that condition of having the whole family involved in faith and work, and the work they did was based on the faith in a very direct way. Some of us, I have to kind of look to see where that is. They had it there. Of course, there's some interesting conversations to be had about missionary work, and we won't get into that now. But unfortunately, when I start thinking more about it, my grandfather was not around anymore for me to ask a few questions that he had some interesting thoughts about, I guess. But nevertheless, the idea of faith and work was there. So moving forward, in 1964, now I was about 7 years old, I moved my family moved to Rio de Janeiro, another town in Brazil. And that's when we got there, the military tanks were on the streets. So it was making sure that we, the population, would understand what it meant to try to have a socialist-leaning government being suppressed. And I basically lived the whole life in Brazil under the military dictatorship. When I came over was when they were first having the first election in Brazil. So my family was sort of apolitical, or that way I understood. And it took me a while to understand more about the geopolitical scenario and find out that the country that I decided to be mine, which is today, I'm a citizen here, was the one that was creating conditions to make sure that the country I was from was being suppressed on the possible more socialist-leaning understanding, right? But at that time, of course, I was just a kid, so I guess my job was to study, to be in school. Every now and then, my father being a son of a missionary, of course, we go to church every Sunday. There was no out. When I became a teenager, I could miss that. So my dad would say, okay, if you want to go, that's fine. You read the book, choose where you want to read from. I suggest the New Testament, but you can choose whatever you want to read. And this afternoon, we'll talk about your reflections on what you read. And yes, we did have the talk every now and then. It didn't take much for me to say, you know what, it's easier just to listen. But again, as a kid, this is just to bring the idea that as a kid, I didn't have many options of not paying attention in some aspects because it was part of what we did at home on a regular basis, right? So we did that. When I got to high school, then I spent most of my high school, end of middle school and high school, I was in Catholic schools. For whatever reason, was the school that was around, and I got into that one. And then again, I'm surrounded by priests, and I was living in a town, at that time was Campinas, São Paulo now, where the Presbyterian seminary was located. So there were a lot of theologians around there, most of them not agreeing with the political situation in the country, but there was the books that you wouldn't show people you were reading, that were the books you would show. And I was given some of the books that you couldn't show much about. And these folks were trying to get me to read Bonhoeffer and other ones that kind of helped the little 15, 16-year-old see some things out there. There were, maybe it was not a problem in some places, in some parts of the world, but for me in Brazil, and for the folks that were around, these were kind of not your regular reading because of the political condition of the country. So a special nun, Sister Nilza, was the one that took me under her wing, and I guess I was a little rebel, and she made sure I went to the favelas, which are the slums, that I would have to write essays and reports and come back with interviews. No, you didn't ask the right questions, sure, go back. So that made sure connect me to the reality that I was privileged not to be part of it as far as the needs, but she wanted to make sure that I was knowing what was around me, and what I was sitting was not really the condition of the country. And so those 3 years were crucial for me to understand that my work as a student was in trying to find out what college I was going to go, what I was going to study, what I believe in. All that was influenced by this condition of the teachers that were surrounding me. And then as I transitioned to college, and I was admitted at a very a good school, and I wanted to be a civil engineer. I did that, I registered for that. In Brazil, you have to take some kind of a test. It's a little complicated to get into college, but 1% gets to it. I got to it, but then I said, well, I should definitely go into sociology too. So I got engineering and the sociology. And after 1 year, I was burned out. The ideas of Max Weber, of theology of liberation with Leonardo Boff on one end, and then math physics on the other end. These two things were letting little Stuart go all bananas, and I couldn't see the connection between the two. So after about 1 year, a little over a year, I kind of closed the word's not closed, but when you stop studying but you do something with the school, how do you call it here? You go to the university and you close your...
Gap year.
Sorry?
Withdrawal.
Yeah, yeah, but there was no gap year known at that time, but that was the idea. I was saying, no, I gotta take some time off. And I almost lost my space in that because the idea of gap wasn't there. As you're not here, you lose it. So for 3 semesters, I basically got 0 on everything I was doing. And when I came back, it was either you pass and everything or you lose your spot. But it took me 1 year and a half traveling around the country. The first 6 months traveling around the country, visiting cousins, uncles, people that I knew that I thought were more adults than I was. Of course, I wasn't at all. To try to help me out figure this out, what I believed. And the question was, what do I believe in? What do I want to work with? And how can I be part of building structures, which was the civil engineer had me look at, and build community. How these two things can go together, because it seemed that I build a building out. That's what the people tell me. And those are the folks who say, no, you build community, forget about that. And I had to find a point between the two. Have a good trip.
Safe travels.
I had to find how I could connect these two. And it took me a while. I couldn't get work in Brazil at that time. I said, well, one thing I can do is just go get some work. And I wouldn't get hired to work in a hotel. I wouldn't get hired to be a driver. I couldn't get hired to work in a restaurant. And eventually I just found out, everybody was saying that I was overqualified. How can you be overqualified? You have 1 year of college. There's no such a thing, right? It was just, what they were telling me was that I was too privileged to be able to fill those positions. But I couldn't see it then. I got one employer that got me a job in a construction site. Construction, I knew about construction for some time already. I'll be a big shot. I got there the first day, but I thought I was going to be supervising. And the employer said, listen, with your level of knowledge, high school and barely 1 year or so of college, you can probably dig trenches, carry bricks, mix cement if you pay attention to the mix, but that's all you can do with your level of knowledge. And that was really a time, something for me to see, really, I got to figure out something else. And after 6 months or so, I was ready to jump back to school and go. The employer was my dad. And I thought I knew something already, but besides knowing the boss, for sure I'm going to get the easy one. I got the roughest one. And the guys that worked with him knew about the plan. I don't know that he told them about the plan. They were just smart individuals that knew, you know what, this kid has to. That's what he can do. And I got some muscles, some backaches, and I got myself into the idea of what I had to do. So then I eventually got to go back to school, almost didn't make it, but got myself straightened out and ended up being a civil engineer. Graduated as civil engineer, and the sociology kind of went on other activities that I was going around, but not as the title. My brother became a sociologist, but I didn't make it for that. I guess I wasn't good enough for that one. So then after that, now I'm 20-something, and doing that interesting too, I think. During that college experience, that was very eclectic as far as the faith, because I was meeting, university, the ones that have been part of it know how beautiful a place that is. You get to know all kinds of people, all kinds of different tracks, and you spend time with them, and right, beautiful place. So I really got to the point that I knew that I could not be a Presbyterian. There were some elements of Calvin, and there were some other things happening in the community I was in. So, of course, being the grandson of a minister and the son of an elder and all kinds of other titles around me, I couldn't just say, I'm not going to go. I had to really write it why. It was a big statement to get out of it. But I say, you know what, this is not for me. I'm going to go for something else. And that was in my mid-20s. And then after that, I came to this country. So I came north, right? And coming north here, of course, I came just to visit the country that my grandparents had left almost 80 years before 70 years before I got here, kind of, 60 years before I got here. And after I was here for some time, I learned that I didn't come to visit, I migrated. Because somehow the dates, the passports, everything jumped in front of me, and when I saw I had migrated, I was undocumented. And I had to figure out what to do about that, and I was lucky to be able to find a way to jump that hoop and not be undocumented, but be documented. And life was going on, I was working, and then my first child popped out, or the idea the wife got pregnant. And as I'm looking, I mention all this because when I was considering the idea of being a father, I looked back and said, you know what? There's something in what Stuart thinks about right and wrong. It's something about the moral compass that has to do with the fact that I spent 20 years of my life within a faith community. So I disagree with one thing here and there. At that point now, 8 years later, they weren't that big. I could have worked around them, but I didn't. But I knew this was important, and if it was important for Stuart, I had a responsibility to make sure that my son, I knew it was a son, that my son would be able to have that kind of experience himself. But of course, now being here and having left the Presbyterian Church for a long time, the Presbyterian churches that I did know were all Portuguese or Spanish speaking, and they were even more conservative than the ones that I was in Brazil. I had to open my mind to some other things that I saw differently at that time, so I knew I couldn't go back there, and I had no idea what other faith was out there. And I just saw that there was a neighbor of ours that every Sunday she left early in the morning and went somewhere, and then she would come back. And then she talked about these people that would drive her to the airport, and she would drive. There was some kind of system of driving each other to the airport, and they would do this, they would do that. I said, well, that's interesting. So finally one day I popped the question, right? So where do you go Sunday? Oh, I go to the fellowship. Oh, fellowship, what's that? So after a few conversations, she introduced me to MUUF, the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. And then I showed up there, and those then were 7 principles. Now I know it's 8, but it was 7. And those 7 principles spoke directly to me. I said, well, we can do this. So when Anna was born, I was already being part of the MUUF community. And Andrew, my son, which is now 30, was raised within the UU tradition. And the whole POW and faith statements, mentoring, going to Boston to learn where we first started, all that was part of what I did with Andrew. And then I was having a rough time in my life, and that situation wasn't working as far as marriage. And MUUF, again, to save me, decided to study, have a group studying Spanish. And I said, you know what, Spanish is not a big stretch for Stuart that knows Portuguese. I get to hang out with some folks Sunday afternoon after the service, and so I'll go for that. So I did start learning Spanish, and the people that came, the organization that came to teach Spanish was Wind of the Spirit. Wow. So Diana was not a teacher, but I started studying that, and then eventually I had one Sunday I had a question about some lyrics that I was reading, the music, and I decided to go to Wind of the Spirit's office to get more idea about that particular question on my mind. And the teacher, I was there, the teacher was doing some stuff, said, you know what, there's a lady up there, talk to her, she can help you, I'm busy. So, okay. I went and talked to the lady, which was Diana. So then, it didn't take that long for me to see life in a different way on that aspect of my life. And we got together, and one day, now we're living together, and one day I come home, and she showed me that little stick with a little bar on it, and it was a pretty decisive bar, there was no question about it. I said, okay, so that was a surprise. But we embarked on that one, and we weren't sure about, Diana was almost 40, she was 39, so we weren't sure about what this is going to happen. She had already a trip scheduled to visit a friend of ours that lived in Germany. And she went to visit Claudia, our friend, and spend most of the time in churches, visiting churches, looking at churches. And she came back with a decision made of what this was going to be. So again, faith was what brought us to that specific decision of what to do with our life as a couple, and now with a couple and a baby. And Diana, for some of you might know her a little bit, but she was Catholic. She was raised within the Catholic tradition. She went to the point of deciding that she wanted to be a nun. Way before I met her. Went to the convent and became a lawyer, And when she was ready to make the final decision, because this is a long process, then she decided, no, it's not for me, get out. So her whole upbringing is heavily involved with faith, and the fact I live with her now for 23 years, again, connects me very much with faith as part of what life's supposed to be. So when Claudia comes up, we had now to make another decision about where are we going to raise Claudia. Because until then, it was my decision to raise Andrew, you. It was tough to consider the idea of going Catholic. And when we learned that Claudia was Claudia and not Claudio, I was sure we couldn't go the Catholic version because the Catholics that we knew around where we were not the space that gender was equally considered. So if it was tough to consider that for Andrew, it was definitely out of the possibilities for Claudia. So we started going to the UU, and Claudia was there until about 5 or so. And then for some complicated reasons, or a lot of different things involved, I don't want to get into right now, Claudia went with Diana to a Quaker meeting. I knew about the Quakers for some time. Some of them were even supporting us, so I had been to Quakers worship, 1 hour silence, one person gets up. And I said, Diana, there's no way that Claudia will go for that. Right to me, if a little kid, stay quiet for 1 hour, it's not happening. And Claudia, I knew for sure would not happen. She comes back, Dad, everybody's so nice over there, we gotta go there. So that's how it came that Claudia was the one that introduced me to that. And we started going into the Quaker fellowship meetings. I was a little leaning out of it, the particular MUUF at that particular point. But I guess if it hadn't been for Claudia bring me that route, most likely I would probably still be now talk about 8 principles. But it was so again, faith was a very important part of that transition, and again came through now my child, Claudia, that was the one that brought into there. What did I leave out? I think I left something out. Well, we talk about this whole immigrant experience. Claudia, I have worked most of my life in construction and building structures in Brazil, and then when I got here, that was the easiest job for me to be transitioned after figuring out the green card situation that I got through babysitting, raising a family, raising other people's kids. But after that, I got into construction again. And in construction, it was very easy when I had my own job. It was very easy to connect faith and work because I could easily talk to the people working with me, the people I would work for on those interviews with the customers. Some, I say, you know what, I don't think I can work for these people. Or they say, I don't think that, because some other things besides the blueprint came into conversation, and it was an easy way for us to kind of see if this was a good fit. When you're going to remodel somebody's house, and we did big remodelings, whole house remodeling, or half of a house, we would be staying together for 2 months, 3 months. We're inside the people's homes. Our workers were in there, so we had to make sure, or at least make an attempt to see if that was a good fit. It's not, I don't know how much you've been into these jobs, these parts of construction, but it's a very intimate relationship, even though it just seems like you're going to change the windows and put a new roof and paint. When you're with the same crew in your same space for 3, 4, 5 months, it could easily go bad if you at least start with some common ground rules. And one of the common ground rules, even though it wasn't spelled that way, was what do you believe in life and what do you think is important, that kind of thing. So I see that as a connection between faith and work. And then about 15 years ago, I came to work for the federal government. So thank you for paying your taxes. And I work for the Department of Labor, I work for OSHA. And in that capacity now, that has been the most difficult part for me of connecting work and faith. It's easy when I see what I'm doing out there, talking to people and making that connection between values and safety, which is what I do. But when I come back into the office, I mean, the majority of the people that I work with think totally different than I do as far as where the country should be going.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm not the happiest kid in the office, and a lot of them are very enthusiastic about dismantling the whole government that employs them. So try to figure that out. But that's where I am right now. As far as working right now, it's very difficult on that. It's very rewarding when I'm thinking about Win the Spirit. It's Win the Spirit, which I'm not a full-time employee of Win the Spirit, but I have a lot to do with it. There's a big connection between faith and work, but not at my OSHA job. So in closing, it seems that faith and work are connected and dependent of each other. My work sustains my faith and my faith guides my work. Sometimes this interdependency tilts to one side and sometimes tilts more to the other side. Sometimes faith is the one that is more on the balance, sometimes it's more the work that's more, but ideally they're kind of supporting each other at the same level. And as I reflect on these ideas and prepared for what we're going to do today, it seemed to me that maybe all of us humans have these two poles connected. The issue might be that, for me, that some of us are considering faith as a liberating, as an inclusive, as a multi-facet element of our lives. And that brings me joy, brings me energy, brings me a positive feeling. And some consider faith as an exclusive, as an oppressive, right? So if we think about gospel of prosperity, I think you call it, is that right? Prosperity gospel? If we think about Charlie Kirk, if we think about some of these other technically or considered faith, I would say technically, faith elements are, I think, totally disturbed. But it doesn't mean that they're not considered faith for the people that are there. So it seems to me to be a challenge to see how I can really listen, because I can sort of listen, but I'm not so sure that I'm really listening to those positions to see what is there and what is here that can be seen as common. It seems they're so far apart. But maybe Stuart is at the wrong place of not being able to see how that can be brought to a common place so that we can move in a way that becomes more inclusive and more supportive of people's growth. And when I was here last Saturday, it seemed to be a great space to see the connection between these two and the energy that was here. I guess I'll look forward to seeing how I saw a lot of the work that's been done. I didn't see it just because I'm sure I'm not here enough, but I'm looking forward to learn more about how people that might come here because of the work connect in some way with faith and how that can continue to grow. I don't know that, but I'm sure there's some of that in what you do.
Yeah.
And I congratulate you for all you do. And if you have any questions, any comments, that's what I had considered bringing up to you.
Wow. Great.
Thank you.
Excellent.
You talk about walking.
Did you tell them about the walking school?
No, we should talk about the walking school.
Walking school?
I'm
Yeah.
starting a walking school.
Through University of Orange. How else do we know where we are? But I was, Molly and I and Charles joined you all on your 25-kilometer walk, and
Thank you.
thank you. It was
Good day.
very, very powerful experience. So I mean, I'm curious, you mentioned these 3 long walks that you've done, and then also you're coming into the Quaker practice, and obviously there being a connection there. But it seems to me there's such an interesting sort of like, these 2 pillars that inform one another, but in walking it really seems like all of a sudden these things are jammed kind of into one another, into the same place. And so I'm curious to hear about walking from you a little more, but there was also this quality, there was this moment when, there were 2 moments on the walk. One repeated a few times, which is seeing people either walking, other pedestrians that we would pass, or people in their cars slowing down, peering at the flags, trying to figure out what was happening. And then also this moment that I first heard someone walk past us and I was near you and they said, "What are you protesting?" And you said, "We're not protesting, we're celebrating." Mm-hmm. And they were so taken aback by this. And then whenever someone else later in the walk came by me and they said, "What are you guys protesting?" I was like, "We're not protesting, we're celebrating." And every time this sort of like, this, I don't know exactly what was happening there. And it's not so straightforward because a celebration can also be a protest, of course. But there was this quality of, which at University of Orange we're quite familiar with, like a kind of lack of immediate legibility, and how powerful folks having to sort of like reorient, like this sort of like reorientation to like trying to understand what's happening. But to me somehow gets wrapped up in this Faith+Works thing that becomes present in the walking. I have no idea how clear that is, but I would love to hear if you have any thoughts about how walking plays a role in all of this, and what it's come to mean to you, and why, as Wind of the Spirit, you're practicing this.
Well, walking is very slow. And when I started doing this, I mean, I'm almost 70 years old. So I started way before we had all these dreadful devices. And we're connected with everything out of us through all these, right? I didn't have the opportunity to do that. So I have a hard time connecting with my kids about this. It's great that they know how to fix my phone.
Yeah.
But it's tough to get them, can you put the phone down? And that's just a little micro experience of what the whole world is going through. So walking, you can be connected because it's even unsafe. Right? We talk to people, you put your phone away, you can't because we're crossing, whatever. And it's very slow. It's just one step after the other. And when we walked to Washington, it was 18 days. When we walked to Scutari, it was a whole 4 or 5 hours. When we walked to Newark, it was a whole 7, 8 hours. They have to, and you talk to one person and you talk to another, but at one point, you're by yourself. So that brings you the opportunity to reflect on what you're doing. You're going to think about the weather, you're going to think about the car, you're going to think, but at one point, you're stuck with, what am I doing here? Or at least you have the opportunity to do that. And the more you exercise that, I walked a lot. So the more you do that, the more you start training yourself. That's my word, training. But getting used to the idea of, you know what, I was thinking about this, I didn't get a chance to talk to Diane about it. But now I'm walking myself for this whole 2 hours. And that thing will come and I have time to, and I can't just Google an answer for it. I can't see whatever stuff is coming to me and stop at that one. I'm just watching a tree or watching this. So the walking, for me, is a great opportunity to have a slow down. I consider to be reject these other connections that most of them, all of them are out of my control. And most of them I probably don't even want them, but I get stuck on them just because they pop, when I open the computer, they pop in, oh, I want to know about this file of something. And then I'm stuck on that whole bunch of stuff that I don't want to, just because it's there. So that's why for me, walking is very powerful. I walk with my kids. I want the next big walk coming up is the Santiago in Europe.
Wow.
But that's supposed to be in 2 years. Hopefully I get the kids to go with me for at least part of it.
Wow.
I don't know if I'll make that one, no, but that's the next one that's on my head. But walking is, for me, it's a very cool thing. And I've met in different points. When I got to In the Spirit, there was the idea of walking. So Stuart didn't necessarily bring that. We walked to Governor's House. So the idea of protest and walk are very together. It just seemed that, especially that specific day, tell people celebration because we were crossing a bunch of people. And with this political environment that we're at now, if you're doing something, you got to be protesting. Not necessarily. We're just considering another option. We're celebrating that option. We're not really. Yeah, we are against what we're saying, but that's not the focus. The focus is on proactive, putting something else. Did that give you any? That's very cool.
Yeah, it's almost like, a break, an opportunity to be in the moment and to really start to consider all of the factors that contribute and affect your life. It's a wonderful, it's almost like being, secluded in many ways. I mean, I'm sure you're communicating with the people you're walking with, but you also have the opportunity not to do that. And that's great. That's really great.
It's reminiscent of Buddhist tradition, right?
Yeah.
With the walking meditation, because there is something meditative, there's a meditative possibility that opens up.
The thing that I was really interested in, as you were talking about your experience as an engineer, and looking at initially seeing it as two completely separate things that you couldn't really figure out a way to bring together. And now it's so wonderful as we start to celebrate space, and we start to celebrate this place and what we thought about this place. When we left here last Saturday, the whole idea was to touch the walls and to get a sense of what this building is about. And I mean, I've been involved in construction for many years, and some aspect of it, and also as a social worker. And I've really, like with a couple of the projects that we've done recently, like redoing these windows and repairing the window in the parish hall and redoing these dormers. You get a sense of, like, they took the windows down and they were falling apart, and we sent them someplace to be fixed, and they came back and they were beautiful. They, in fact, the contractor who did this took all of the glass out, even the glass that wasn't loose or broken, and rearranged it so that it gave a more balanced view of the stained glass that was in. So, I can completely relate to how that eventually comes together. And I'm 72, so, that's taken a long time too. But this is very good. Thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank
Can
you
I
very
ask you a
much.
question?
Sure.
I've been asking people a 3-part question these days, just to kind of see where they are, and I'd be really intrigued to hear your answers. So it's a question in 3 parts. First part is, what is it that's keeping you up at night these days? Like, what is the thing that is most on your mind? What is that thing? The second part is, in everything that's happening in your life and the world, is there a value, a personal value that's sort of rising? And maybe it's one, maybe it's a couple, but like, what are these times calling your value to the value that you want to express? And then the third part of the question is, and I always ask it in short term, right? Like, in the next 6 months of your life, 6 months to 1 year, what's the one thing you most like to change? What's the the thing that you feel like your action might actually influence a change.
Can you say that again?
So what's keeping you up at night?
What keeps me up, it doesn't keep me up because I go to sleep. But I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, every single day. So at 9 or 10, I try to go to bed, but 5 hours later, I'm up. And there were times in my life that I didn't wake up. So I would say, to be honest with your question, it's not that it keeps me up, but it wakes me up. But it's the same idea. What wakes me up and what most concerns me is that I'm almost 70, so I'm not that young. I won't be here for long. My dad passed at 84, my grandfather's 73, so I don't know what that math is, and I'm not working on that. But and I'm walking to help extend. But I know I'm not going to be for too much longer. My son is 30, my daughter is 20. Another interesting thing about faith, but I'll after your question, after I answer yours. So what keeps me up is I definitely am very concerned about the place that we are as far as a country, because undoubtedly this is not that we right now have one administration that has all these awful thoughts about it. They're building their existing based on what wasn't done until they got to be elected. All these structures were here already. They were around. When Obama was the first president that I voted that got elected. The first president I voted was for Bush. First time I voted for president was when I was in this country, so the first election was Bush. So all these things were there, and I think that I was kind of asleep on the wheel, celebrating a few things, moving a few things, but not really pushing enough for structural changes that would not allow this to be out there. When Obama was elected, one of the meetings I had in a big room, we were building big structures. And I was there, and the guys running the show, the GC for the whole job, I was just in charge of about 200 masons doing the masonry part of the work. So I was just one piece of the puzzle. But the one running the show told the people, hey guys, this was right after the election. We gotta put the hats back. We gotta hide the hats for now. So this was just a few years ago that someone thought that they could, in the meeting, they had no clue what the political incline was of everybody. He found himself empowered to say that the Ku Klux Klan hat should be put away for now. In a meeting with 20 people. So this is to say that all this was out there, and we all know that. So what keeps me up is, what can I do in the years that I have ahead of me to make sure that we don't bring it back to where we were a year ago, 2 years ago, but we build blocks to change this. And that's why I'm concerned about how much am I hearing the prosperity gospel people and all these other isms, because I have to be able to reach something to change this. And I don't know what that is. I think states telling people we're celebrating instead of protesting is one little grain, but there's a lot more that, so I feel a sense of urgency of what can I do to make that, and who do I have to be surrounded by to make sure that because just Stuart is not much, but together we can do a lot. So that's what wakes me up. The values that I think that I can bring to.
Yeah, like your core value that's resonating.
The core value is, I think it's basically everything that I sort of touched on. The fact that there was something beyond Stuart, the faith and the hope of connecting with people of seeing something that is bigger than me, that might be called God, might be called something else, but it's what makes me be able to see everybody as equal. And it's a hard thing. There's a little bigger step for me because I'm white, I'm male, I had a pretty easy upbringing as far as education and whatnot, so it's a little step that I have to pay more attention than if I had none of these privileges. But nevertheless, I think that is the value of that that can bring us to this better place. That is, I can see it, but we're not there. And the third one?
The third one is really in the short term. What kind of change are you working for that you think you can actually help?
In the short term, the main change that I think I'm working inside. I'm working with the two kids that I birthed. So I gotta kind of push on that a little bit. One got married a month ago. So that's a big change because now there's another family, which happens to be a Trump supporter family. Not the girl, but the family. And my talk, apparently the father of the groom has to say something. It didn't go that well. Some people went to congratulate what I said, and some people didn't say anything. But that was something I had to do. Even the microphone, and I didn't ask for it, but since they gave it to me, I had to put some things out there. And my daughter, that goes for the other thing. My daughter went to Colombia after some pretty substantial life, difficult conditions during the pandemic, and went down and was going to study music. She's been playing violin and singing since she's about 8 to almost a professional level, so she's very good at it, and was sure she was going to be a musician. And after 1 year, she said, no, I'm not going to do that. And she changed. This is the first semester. She went very well in school, and she went into theology. So I don't know what that means, because I don't know if you can know much about what it means for a 20-year-old and figure out what they're going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do myself, so how can a 20-year-old know? But for me, it's an indication that maybe we've been working on some interesting things together for her to think that she was, at one point she was going to go and study, she would go to UU in Summit for the OWL program.
Oh, yeah.
In the morning, she would sing with the Episcopalians. That's how she got most of her. And then in the middle of the day, she went to the Quaker worship. So spending time in these kind of spaces has been something very common for her. So I think what I'm mostly trying to work on is to make sure I'm surrounded by people way younger than me. So in the organization that we run with the Spirit, we're making sure we're having people in these specific positions. They are at least half of our age.
Oh, that's smart.
And in the I do that in my OSHA work too, because I'm mentoring to other folks that are coming in. But as I mentioned, that part of faith and work cannot go very smoothly on that. I sprinkle some ideas, but I gotta watch how much I do. But that's what I'm mostly concerned, is to make sure that I'm surrounded by people that are willing to listen and understand that they'll be listened to. The fact that they're younger has nothing to do with not knowing something. It just has to mean that I need help to carry this one, and I want to make sure that, or I'm asking, are you part of this carrying or not? Do you like this or you don't? And sometimes, it's happened, that we have to change a little bit what I had in mind, because this 20-year-old is not counting the kids, because the kids is a big change already, but these are the other ones. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
No, shall we put the challenge out?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Nice.
Thank you. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Do we
Shall we have
have,
some tea?
we should make some announcements also.
Make some announcements.
We always have
Got
announcements.
some announcements in your pocket?
Margot has something to say.
Oh, hi Margot.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful.
Technical setup.
Hello. Good to see you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for that wonderful talk.
Yeah, thank you. That was really, really cool to hear. I appreciate all of you there at the hub, and Stuart, appreciate your thoughts. All right, I got it.
So glad you came, Margot, Wayne, everybody on Zoom.
All
Good
right.
to see you all.
And
Yes.
as the folks on Zoom are leaving, leaving.
Announcements.
In December, we'll have our
Candle communion
candle communion
on the solstice, the 21st.
on the solstice, which is fun. Maybe Margot and I will think about some music, and we do a sort of a sweetness swap that everyone's invited to, where we invite people to share a story or a poem or some music or whatever you'd like.
But don't bring candles.
Yeah, we've accumulated a lot of candles. It's kind of fun to keep accumulating. So we'll see. We'll send an email about that.
And that's December 21st.
At 4 p.m.
At 4 p.m.
And then on December 5th, our 10th annual Remembering Rosa concert is happening at Haywood Avenue School at 6:30 p.m. As always, in partnership with Ebenezer Baptist and with the Orange Public Schools. And we're celebrating 10 years of doing our Concert for Peace, Remembering Rosa, but also it's the 125th anniversary of Lift Every Voice and Sing, known often as the Black National Anthem. So we'll have a choir of, we've been rehearsing with our community choirs, maybe 25 people sing adult singing with us, but they'll be joined by maybe another 25 children, and we'll sing together. And
Great.
We're also going to do, the showstopper will be collaboration between the community choir and our community steel pan band. We'll do a rendition of One Love. It's sounding really good.
Wow.
Nice.
So I'm really
Great.
excited about that.
Shouldn't the showstopper be when we sing Lift Every Voice and Sing?
Two showstoppers. There's one in the middle.
Stop and start and then stop again.
Exactly. And then the other kind of big event coming up is also with the Steel Pan Band. Their second annual Trinity Holiday Party will be here in the hall on December 10th, Wednesday evening. So those are sort of...
Thank you.
And potluck on Mondays.
Oh, and the potlucks on Monday.
The potlucks tomorrow.
Yeah, wonderful.
So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us, Stuart and Charles and Priscilla, our guests. And thank you, Stuart, for your wonderful talk.
That was
Yeah.
just wonderful. Thank you so much.
And yeah, we can have some tea if anyone wants to stick around for a short
Bye,
minute.
Margot.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Karen.
Bye, Margot.
Bye-bye, everyone. Good to see you.
Stuart,